Shit. Here we go again, Callum. At least we've got good practice of doing these sort of reviews.
Yeah, it's absolutely back to what we're used to. Some more shambolic defending to discuss. So, I suppose we better get stuck into it.
Yeah, the bogey team really did become that. Dear Lord, what a sad little life, Motherwell. You ruined mine and everyone's weekend completely. So you could have those 3 points. I just hope you don't waste it on European football again so you can embarrass yourselves, because you have all the grace and decorum of a reversing dump truck without tyres on. There's my Peter Marsh impression.
I think it was pretty well put. I mean, I didn't expect the European jib again. I mean, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The fact we were losing to those Cowboys that lost to Sligo Rovers twice. How bad was maybe?
Yeah, I know. I wasn't going to include the European jibe considering we couldn't beat a team that couldn't beat Sligo, but it was the only thing that I could think was funny and worked. So, but Callum, I suppose before we kind of really delve into it, there's been a lot of reaction to the defeat on Saturday. Maybe some people calling it an overreaction, some people calling it a meltdown. There might be a meltdown throughout this episode as it goes on, but I can accept there's going to be bumps in the road as part of this rebuild that Jim Goodwin's doing, and we had to kind of rejig the team ahead of Saturday. But what I can't accept is a performance like what we saw on Saturday. We were simply outthought by Motherwell and Stevie Hamill, and Motherwell benefiting from a new manager bounce that Jim Goodwin's just never had it in his time in Aberdeen. And it's that fact that we were outthought and also outfought, for me, that simply still irks me and is going to wind me up throughout this episode.
Yeah, I agree. It's more of the second point for me there, that we were outfought. I can understand, it's early days, the squad's still gelling, etc. They've got their new manager bounce. They're obviously very organised, but every second ball, every loose ball, Motherwell first to it. And if the quality is not there, understand things don't come off in the day or whatever, but that's the one thing you've got to be really at and make sure that regardless of the quality is not coming off, make sure you get to those first, second balls, those loose balls. But they were winning every 50-50, everything. They wanted it more, and it showed, really.
Yeah, every break of the ball fell for them. And you said every 50-50 was falling to them. And also, any time they seemed to be under pressure, I use the term quite loosely, they 3 passes and that was them up at the halfway line, and we were immediately on the back foot. We just couldn't get a stranglehold on the game, even when we were 2-1 up as well. It was just so frustrating.
Yeah, it's exactly that. And when you mentioned, going up 2-1, and you think maybe we'll get a little bit of control of the game, or things like that. But if anything, we seem to lose our heads a little bit more. But it's not exactly what you want. But we do need to remember sort of early days in the season, things like that. A lot of new players. We're not helped by injuries, which are coming throughout the game, which I don't know what Jim Goodwin's doing in the midweek if he's putting them through SAS training for that to happen. But they're really starting to add up, and it's just, we're having to rejig mid-game, and then Jim Goodwin's forgetting about the substitutions, and let's get stuck in. I don't know whether I'm looking forward to getting it all out or just terrified of reliving it all again.
Yeah, I think there'll be a few people, Gogsy in particular, will have his popcorn at the ready, but I also think Jonathan Main, who very much enjoys when we have these sort of meltdowns, will enjoy this sort of therapy session that this episode hopefully provides to some of you, because I know not everyone likes listening to Aberdeen podcasts after a defeat, but sometimes for Callum, for us, it certainly helps get that anger out. But it's due to injury, which we did suffer throughout the game, we'll come on to, we were forced into that one change. Leighton Clarkson starting in midfield, replacing Hayden Coulson, obviously dropped out with injury. It really does show, kind of having to drop Ross McCrory into defence, how much of a rebuild we've still got on our hands.
Yeah, I think so. I think we probably are still lacking a centre-back, and I think that sort of adds emphasis to that. I mean, when the fullback drops out, you shouldn't have to rejig absolutely everything. I suppose that wasn't helped, obviously, with Jack McKenzie then being injured at the same time. So I suppose it was good to see him come in and get some minutes. But then early look ahead, St Johnstone, I'd probably like to see him just come in so we can get McCrory back in the midfield, because in a physical game like that, dropping McCrory out, who is that sort of, I don't know if I'm going to call him enforcer or anything like that, but he's 6 foot odd, he'll run all day long. He'll throw himself about against teams like Motherwell, St Johnstone. Taking that out, putting it into the back four when it's on the left side as well, so not even his stronger side. It's just not ideal whatsoever.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing, right? But we were forced into a change around the 55 minute mark for Jack McKenzie. If he's fit enough to play that amount of football, could we not have started him and then still allowed Ross McCrory to play in midfield? Did we have to, start with the team we did? It just, I think we saw when we were chasing the game that Jack McKenzie didn't offer a lot on the left, in my opinion, going forward. A couple of good balls, but he didn't have that sort of pace that certainly Liam Scales had on the left-hand side. But it just kind of irks me if he's fit enough for the bench. Surely he's fit enough to start the game. You want to be starting with your strongest possible team. And you have, Jim Goodwin spoke about partnerships, building partnerships to give them the best possible opportunity. That partnership is McCrory and Ramadani, Scales and Stewart. And we've had to ruin both of them because of one injury, but we had a left back sitting on our bench that ended up playing, over half an hour.
Yeah, I think it's especially annoying when, the injury isn't even in centre mid or centre back. It's elsewhere. And I suppose with Jack McKenzie, maybe the amount of times we've seen him sort of be rushed back and then it's hampered him down the line again. I suppose maybe that was sort of playing in Jim Goodwin's mind, perhaps. But, I don't know. But it's certainly something I'd like to probably see us going into the St Johnstone game. Just start with him at left back. If we do need to change it later on, fine. But hopefully he gets through even an hour or so unscathed. And ideally we'd be in control by then. But we all know that's not a given.
Yeah, and I suppose, Calum, obviously not being at the St Mirren game, one thing that you were keen to stress was the slow start that we made to the game, following on from the slow start that we had at Parkhead, obviously finding ourselves behind after 3 minutes. And I thought, it can't have been that bad, but bloody hell, we didn't half start slowly again this weekend. That is a trait that we are really going to have to get out the groove of, because we invited Motherwell onto us in the opening 10 minutes. Kyle Roos made a good save from Sean Goss, a player that I think I identified in the previous episode that likes to shoot from distance. But it was one-way traffic for the opening, certainly first 10 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. It looked pretty chaotic, and that's 3 games in a row. And even against Wraith, we didn't start particularly comfortably either. It's something that needs stamped out. And I don't know how it's possibly happening, because you've worked all week for this game. Jim Goodwin's presumably had a rousing team talk just about 15 minutes prior or whatever. And they come out and it's, all hands on deck kind of thing, but in a chaotic fashion where everybody's everywhere. There's no rhythm, tempo. We're not controlling things. And that's at home. Yeah. Given how bad we were last season, I'm not looking forward to seeing how it's going to be against St Johnstone if it's more of the same.
Yeah, don't worry. We've got to come on to preview that as well. And I suppose when you do start as poorly as we did, you want to be able to pounce on the first opportunity that comes. And pounce was what Miovski did on the slip from the Motherwell defence. And as he raced through, I thought, here we go, we're 1-0 up. This is, change the game totally. And it's almost like he had too much time. I don't know what he was thinking, chipping the ball. I know you had someone reply to your tweet about this. Definitely took the wrong end of the stick, I think, but inexcusable. He's got 4 goals in 4 games. 5 if you want, 5 goals if you want to include the St Johnstone game from the trip in Spain, but inexcusable that he doesn't hit the target there. Imagine if that was one of the other strikers, maybe an American one, for example.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point, but shout out to Gaz for getting on at me. I can understand, he has been very, very good, but when that chance is presented to you, and given we know what he's capable of, I just think it was frustrating that he went for the chip. He tried to be a little bit too cute. Having said that, if he hits the back of the net, we're all hailing him as the best player that's ever graced Pittodrie. But
exactly,
it's just, it's a little bit frustrating. He had a lot of time, and if we go in front there, he buries that, then it's a totally different game. And I would say, then we have control. I suppose, with the Motherwell bounce, maybe that sort of unsettles and we go 1-0 up and it sort of ruins their rhythm a little bit. But we saw what happened when we went 2-1 up anyway. It sort of had the opposite effect. But it is really frustrating. He went for that chip. But a very good point. Had that been a certain CR99, I don't think he'd have got off quite so lightly.
Yeah, exactly. More on him later on in this episode anyway. But yeah, just one of those things that I think, the way that Motherwell suffered defeat last time out, for all the pressure that they'd put on us, if we'd gone and, chucked that in the back of the net, it would be maybe could have been a totally different podcast we were having today. But also it would have been interesting to see how the Motherwell mentality reacted to that. Going, oh, here we go again. Would their heads have dropped? But like you said, we didn't see that 2-1. But Motherwell's pressure was eventually rewarded as they found themselves 1-0 up thanks to a very cute volley from Blair Spittle. But I mean, fuck me, the defending, just the whole general Aberdeen point of view of this goal is awful. I mean, fair play to Shields for the tenacity down our left-hand side, getting to the byline. But Liam Scales, man, he has got to close that cross down. He's got to do better in terms of preventing the cross. Jaden Richardson doesn't cover himself in glory. I know he slips, but I still think it's quite weak. It didn't look like he was set at all for dealing with the cross coming in. And I can't help but feel, certainly at the game, I wasn't sure if Keller Rose could do better. The replay makes it look so slow.
There is certainly a lot of question marks, I think, after that game, certainly from what I've seen on social media over calories. But yeah, I think it does start with Liam Scales. Really, I know he's out of position playing at left back, but he has to do a lot better there. Once sort of Shields slows down to sort of try and control the ball before putting it in, Scales also slows down instead of still going in and trying to stop that cross. And that was the one thing that really stuck out on me. Which is frustrating. I know he will learn from that. And then once it's in, Jaden Richardson, put it this way, wasn't the only one on that park to slip about, but it just came at the most costly time, which was very, very frustrating. I think I said they all need to change their boots at halftime to make sure get a little bit more grip. And I do agree with Kelroos, having watched it on the replay. I think he was maybe a little bit caught off guard with Richardson slipping, and he maybe didn't expect Spittle to get the shot off. But regardless, he's got to react a little bit better, and I don't know if things got too much better for Keller from then on.
Yeah, no, they really didn't. I hope he's not tuning into this episode because it's really not going to get much better for him. But yeah, I kind of agree on Scales as well that it was so frustrating watching the goals back on Sunday and just seeing how avoidable they were. And I'm sure for Jim Goodwin as well, we mentioned after the Celtic game that it was only still 2 league clean sheets. That fact continues now, and once again it is an avoidable goal from an Aberdeen point of view. Scales, as you said, inexcusably slows down at the same time as Shields does. Just get there, get tighter, stop that cross. And if he'd done all he could, I'd have maybe not been as annoyed had we conceded. But then even on Roos as well, I'm not sure if he's thinking that Spittle's going to take a touch, or he's not expecting the volley. It's just car crash, really. And you think, okay, well, that's fine when we've got it out our system. Let's see how we can go. But oh boy, were we wrong? Were we wrong on that? And I don't really think we really reacted too well to the goal as well. We looked pretty clueless.
Yeah, we absolutely did. I think that's a very good word to describe it. The reaction wasn't great, and you thought maybe after the start we had, that might be the kick up the backsides, but it did take us a little while to get going once again, and that's concerning, especially at home. Away from home, we can understand maybe teams will then sort of try and put on the pressure, the fans will get behind it, and they'll try and sort of twist the knife kind of thing. But at home, when you've got a good crowd, Red Shed had a pretty decent voice again, given the lack of things they had to shout about.
Well, after the statement from the club after recent events as well.
Yes, true, but they didn't react, and not quite the way we'd like to. Thankfully, we did eventually, get that goal. But I think it's clear to see. I think from that goal and probably from the whole 90 minutes, there's still a lot to learn from this group. It's still early days, which is annoying, and it's hard to remember after such a bad performance. And I certainly wasn't thinking about that on Saturday, but yeah,
I certainly wasn't thinking that on Saturday, on Sunday, about 2 minutes before we were recording it. Yeah, exactly. And I think it also shows because, I spoke about partnerships in the opening minutes of this episode, and Ramadani had one of the biggest off days I've seen in his time in Aberdeen. And when you're then missing your usual partner in midfield, it doesn't help when you've then got your next best midfielder also having an off day, especially against a team like Motherwell who are going to be tenacious in that midfield battle. And at times I felt we were really overrun.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Sean Goss had the freedom of Pittodrie at times there, just in that whole controlling things far too easily. But then when we were on the ball, some of Ramadani's touches so slack. The passing was horrendous. Wasn't the only one out there, but I mean, certainly Anthony Stewart's not a ball-playing centre-back, that's for sure. I think he should be in training, just marking a wall with some chalk, just aiming for the target and trying to control the ball once it comes back, because we'll get onto that later on. I know, but it wasn't Ramadani's best day, and I understand, they were forming the partnership with McCrory, and then Leighton Clarkson comes in. There's further injuries and things like that, but it's still unnerving that they're getting even this really simple things very wrong.
Yeah, and I think as well it also just shows, for all the good that Leighton Clarkson did against St Mirren, it just shows that maybe still lacking in a bit of physical ability. People said he maybe needs to bulk up, and Scottish football is a lot more physical compared to English football, and I think that also showed for young Leighton as well. Again, just emphasising the work that we do still need. Yes, we are frustrated, we're annoyed, use whatever word you want based on Saturday. I'm trying to keep this episode as clean as I can despite earlier fails, but it does just highlight there is still a job to be done, but we can, and I think we are entitled to be annoyed and frustrated when things don't go our way, especially a level of performance that we as fans feel should befit an Aberdeen shirt. If that doesn't meet our standards, we are right to be annoyed and vent that frustration, whether it be on here or on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. As we said earlier, it wasn't even, if things don't come off, the quality's not there, that's okay. There's days like that. But it was also the sort of, as you mentioned, the tenacity that Motherwell came with, and we just didn't look up for matching that whatsoever. And I think that was where, my main gripe is. I mean, the amount of time, even when we're on the ball, be it the centre-backs or Ramadani coming deep, there's 20 yards of grass in front of them. Okay, there's not much options ahead of them, which the forward, some of their movement was just lacking completely. And some of how narrow we were at times, horrendous. But run into that space, try and change the picture. If there's, instead of just going back, side to side, have that bravery on the ball, try and make something happen. Which is, I think, Jim Goodwin's highlighted in interviews. He wants players who are brave on the ball that will make those things happen. And I understand it's not the natural game of probably Anthony Stewart, and then Ross McCrory being on the left-hand side is not helpful either. But they play for Aberdeen. They're professional footballers. They're there for a reason. Yeah, show a bit of belief. Try and make something happen if there's nothing up ahead of you.
Yeah, and another gripe that was really grinding my gears on Saturday was folk tweeting, could be worse, could be Man United. And then on Sunday, could be worse, could be Dundee United. I couldn't give a fuck, to be honest, Deb. We've got our own house to get in order, which to me is much more important than caring, especially what Man United are doing. Who cares?
This video is getting demonetized, goodness me. But no, I do agree. I do try and cheer myself up slightly thinking about these things, but at the same time, and we've just delivered such a shambolic performance as that, all around, really, it is hard.
Yeah, and one hard thing, I suppose, for the weekend will be for Matty Kennedy, who looks to have picked up a hamstring injury. Looked to be occurred in taking the free kick, which he ballooned over the bar. And I do feel sorry for Matty. He's had a lot of injury problems, and just when he's had a good pre-season behind him, looks to be returning to full fitness and maybe full potential, he picks up this injury, meaning an early debut for Shayden Morris. What was your thoughts on, obviously, the Kennedy injury and then the debut that we saw from Shayden?
I mean, it's not great for Matty Kennedy. He has looked a lot better, obviously, against lower league opposition and things like that, but he has looked confident, and I'm sure once he recovered from that injury that had been plaguing him for a long time, kept niggling at me, thought, great, confidence is back, and it certainly looked like that. But it's just really, really frustrating. And after I said, second coming to George Best will be fine with Callum Roberts out injured, then he decides to go get injured. So I guess it's my fault a little bit. But I was quite impressed with Shayden Morris. I think some of the final, as you know, the Fleetwood fan said, something like the end product still needs working on, but he looked confident from the minute he came on. He was demanding on the ball to be on the ball all the time. He was asking for it, and he looked confident. The shot he sent wide, I didn't mind that at all. He's trying to make things happen when, you know, there was maybe not much else on, and he has that confidence. It's clear that he's still, you know, a work in progress. I think everyone was sort of aware of that when he signed. Still very, very young, still with, you know, little experience, I suppose, and in a new league, surrounded by new teammates as well. But I think there was reasons to be hopeful there on show, despite, you know, as I said, the end product may be lacking at times.
Yeah, I'd probably agree. In all, I think, you know, some of his first touches, at times he was struggling to control the ball. It was maybe touch was getting away and he was having to then scramble to get it back. But like you said, maybe a work in progress. And obviously, you know, he's not linked up with the squad and had that pre-season behind him. So it's maybe still a little bit of learning. But, you know, when we come on to the second goal, he showed good tenacity between him and Jayden, linking up well on the right-hand side. I was encouraged by that. You know, Watson said to me at the game, he said, "Oh, he reminds me of Raheem Sterling, the way he runs as well." And once he said that, I couldn't get that image out of my head. But unfortunately, we don't quite have the next Raheem Sterling on our hands yet. But, you know, maybe with more minutes that he's going to now get with Matty Kennedy out injured, we can maybe see that potential coming forward. But yeah, certainly from what we've seen in the early stages, so there's maybe a few things that, you know, they're not exactly terrible. They can be worked on, but there is definitely a player in there, I feel.
Yeah, I do agree. I mean, I think we need to stop these matching Aberdeen players with ex-Manchester City players, because one of my pals that I go to the football with kept describing Anthony Stewart as Vincent Kompany throughout some of the earlier games. And I mean, he does win every header, but I mean, I think that is a little bit of a stretch. But I'm happy if he does reach that one day. And then he went and delivered that performance against Motherwell, which sort of threw me off track a little bit.
Yeah, and I suppose, you know, for the performance that we put in that first 45, you wouldn't have begrudged Motherwell the lead at half time. But fair play to Aberdeen, we kind of grew in a little bit of confidence towards the back end of the first half. And Liam Scales, what a brilliant delivery into the box, making up for maybe his mistake and costly error at the first goal, or certainly his part that he played in that. And Bojan Miovski, for the miss that he had, more than makes up for it. What a header!
Unbelievable. The way he hung in the air as well was superb. Fantastic header. He did make up for the earlier mistake. Annoying that wasn't his second of the game, but absolutely fantastic ball in from Liam Scales. And, you know, going into half-time level when maybe you don't deserve it, you're thinking, ideal we could be on here if we get, you know, half-time right. And we kind of did, to be fair. But, and then it went all Pete Tong. But fantastic header from Bojan Miovski. I think with the earlier chance, you know, he's still young, he'll learn, and that probably shows the confidence he's got right now as well, which is understandable. I think it'll be a very, very big season for Bojan, which I'm quite excited about. I'm sure, referencing back to the earlier chance, the next one he'll make sure to power home.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an exciting season for him. I think it's going to be an exciting season following Aberdeen. We're certainly look like we're going to score goals, but equally we also look like we're going to concede a lot as well. Well, certainly just now anyway. So interesting to see how this season does pan out. Obviously, as I said, Bojan getting his fourth goal of the season, made it 1-1, and I thought, right, getting at half-time, you know, regroup, because surely the second half can't be as bad. They'll get a rocket up the arse. We'll see something at the start of the second half, and we did see something at the start of the second half, because just 2 minutes into the second half, we find ourselves 2-1 up. Some good work down the right-hand side. Although I think if you're a Motherwell fan, you're probably going to be a bit disappointed with the way you defend that goal. And Johnny Hayes, I think I put in the notes bundled, but maybe folk want to say rifled the ball into the roof of the net at the red shed end. And I thought, things are looking a lot rosier now.
I know. I think rifled is a fair way to describe it. I think that goal was exactly what Johnny Hayes deserved. You know, I pipped him for top assists. It's bizarre that at 35 years of age, he's still one of our most influential players. And even if the quality is lacking at times, I don't think the effort can ever be questioned. He's one of the few where it is like that. And probably playing his best football since his return, dare I say it, in my opinion.
Yeah,
in terms of a consistent spell.
Yeah.
So, in terms of a consistent spell, anyway. So deservedly so, banging that home. I was very happy for him. We celebrated, maybe a bit too boisterously, given what was to come. But and I think he was unlucky to get hooked later on too. But once we do get that goal, you think, okay, maybe Motherwell lose their way a little bit. We can start to take control of this game. We're at home, very good quality players in there, but it was almost the opposite, really.
Yeah, exactly. 2-1 up, what could go wrong? Well, Jim, that defence that was easy to fix. Well, that's what could go wrong because, boy, we didn't cover ourselves in glory. But on that Johnny Hayes point, yeah, I think you're right. He's definitely playing his most consistent level of football since his return. I would agree on that. And also on the point of him getting hooked, I was a bit disappointed to see him kind of come off because I thought he was probably our best player in terms of creating things. And I think, I was thinking the little muscle boy, Vinny Bazoun, was going to be there for being hooked because this is a sidetrack, so it's not in the notes, but it was a debate that I was having with Robert Gillespie in the pub pre-match about whether or not Vinny is a number 10 or a winger. I thought he was maybe more suited to being a number 10 compared to a winger based on what we saw last season, though maybe after Saturday, we can't really take one game in earnest, but didn't really suit him this weekend as a number 10. Where do you think his best position in this Aberdeen team is?
I do enjoy him coming off the left as my preferable choice. We've seen him. He likes coming in off the left with his right foot, taking a shot on, and he is capable of getting to the byline, getting the ball across too. I don't know if if you're going to play number 10, you need to sort of be that link between midfield and the forwards players. And I don't know if sort of like vision wise and the capability to pick a sort of slide rule pass, things like that is maybe quite there for Vinny. Obviously still very early days, but having said that, when he is out wide, I think defensively can be a little bit of a liability. There was one point I noticed where he just didn't bother tracking back during the game, which wasn't ideal. I suppose it depends on who's at left back. I think if it's Hayden Coulson, he's going to be bombing forward. Hopefully not as carelessly as Jaden Richardson, perhaps on the other side. So maybe you do need someone that's a little bit more work rate, a little bit more defensively sound on that left-hand side. So it is a tough one. I suppose depending on opposition, that might be where it differs, because if you're looking for someone with pace and directness, then I guess he's your man. But if you're looking for a creative spark, someone to slip a ball through a defence that's sitting in against you, I don't know if he is that guy.
I don't know. I think probably opposition does come into it, but then the point you've just made there about cover with tracking back, because we saw a lot on Saturday how exposed we were on Jaden Richardson's side, and it's a point I've been making, I think, regularly on this show. It feels that defensively, I think we're yet to see the best of Jaden Richardson because we're always getting caught out. And obviously now with Matty Kennedy injured, if Shaden Morris is going to fill in that role, he's going to have to pick up a lot of defensive duties as well to help out, which I think Matty was doing. Equally then on the left-hand side, you've got Hayes, who really covers your left wing back, full back, whatever you want to call them, well. But if you moved Vinny into there, do we have that same cover? And we can't afford to be exposed down both flanks when we're already being badly exposed down one.
Yeah, that is sort of my thinking as well. But then equally, when the game's dominated in Central Park as well, and the game's controlled so much by Motherwell, like Sean Goss in particular was doing, then I suppose I don't know if Vinny in there with Leighton Clarkson, who's a little bit lightweight as well, and then Ramadani not on his game. It's not ideal, but that all sort of still stems from McCrory not being in there, which it's very annoying how much this could potentially be a problem if we don't get the right additions before the end of the window.
But not even right additions, it's also injuries just showing how much as well, because we currently have a centre-back on our books that isn't interested, or maybe the manager isn't interested in playing. We could be stuck with him, come the 1st of September. It could be a problem that we are just not looking the same when we're moving Ross McCrory out of position, because we aren't playing players that are out of favour. Maybe more on that later as well.
Yeah, no, it's true. I do find it weird that Bates isn't even really being involved on the bench, sort of as cover. Because, for example, if something did happen to Anthony Stewart, for example, and you've already got McCrory in at centre back, and Scales is needed elsewhere, or if something happens to one of them too, then you're bringing on, Jack Milne, who obviously very highly thought of. He's a big lad, but Jim Goodwin even said himself, he needs to fill out. And you bring him on, against the likes of Kevin van Veen, and if he gives him a torrid time, poor boy's confidence might be absolutely shot to bits. And I don't know if David Bates is going to deal with things much better, but a bit more physically better perhaps, and more experienced. So it's a weird one. I do feel like David Bates maybe they do need to sort of decide to trust him, and give him that chance if he is going to be that cover for centre back, or see if anyone will take him off our hands and see if we can get someone else in.
But these points of discussion that we're having just now, I think also relate back to just the job that we currently have on our hands in terms of a rebuild, in terms of get things right. Again, to go back to that point I made earlier, we can be critical of what we saw at the weekend, but just what we're discussing now just shows how much work that Jim Goodwin has to get things right. But how quickly a couple of injuries, a couple of suspensions possibly, a couple of games against Celtic can throw the plans straight out the window.
Yeah, definitely. It's hard, given the amount of signings we've made, but it's also hard to remember, with that many people coming in the door as well. It will take, time to gel and things like that. And also still another couple of transfer windows probably to get things right. I think I maybe got a bit carried away, surprise, thinking things will maybe be all fixed all of a sudden in the summer. But, it will take more time given from where we were to get to where we want to be. A couple more transfer windows, players settling, players gelling, getting that experience and things like that. But I think that game will be a learning curve, and hopefully we do end up seeing the right response to that.
Yeah, hopefully, and obviously we hope that starts this weekend against Johnstone, which we'll come on to previewing shortly, because we're taking a long time to review this game, but there's been so much to kind of dissect and get into. And Calum, as we said, we hoped if Majowski scored that chance after 10 minutes, the Motherwell heads would go down. I was very confident the same would happen when we found ourselves 2-1 up after 47 minutes. But 5 minutes later, we gift Motherwell a route back into the game. Motherwell countered on us very well. Scales makes a tackle, the ball goes out for a corner, and then we just stand and watch. Where do we start?
I watched back the set piece a little bit. I couldn't bring myself to watch back the full sort of sports scene highlights or Red TV highlights, but I watched the SPFL YouTube ones. I thought, right, I'll cut off all the nonsense. I don't want to, ruin my mood even more. But I went through the set piece a few times, and it is absolutely ridiculous. The ball comes in. It's in Kelleroos's 6-yard box. He doesn't deal with it. And then Callum Slattery, who had been on Kelleroos with nobody picking up. How many times do you see sort of two players jostling in front of the keeper? Nobody picked him up. Kelleroos sort of shoved him out of the way. He nips off at the back post. And then McCrory, who already had a man at the back post, is then left with two. No one picking up Callum Slattery. Roos doesn't collect the ball. Horrendous all round. And also Anthony Stewart sort of missed the header on the way in as well, which I don't know if he could have done much better with, but just adds to the frustration. It was absolutely awful. And admittedly, well worked from Motherwell. I don't know, it was well worked, I suppose, the way Callum Slattery peels off. But at the same time, that's only worked because of our, ineptitude. Is that a word? I don't know. To not pick up, to not pick up the man at the back post is absolutely free after Kelleroos tried to, push him away. It's ridiculous.
Even if you want to call it well worked, it's only well worked because Kelleroos decides that he can't leave his line. I don't know what he's thinking. It's a great ball into the box, yes, but you don't need to admire it. Come out and claim it. Derby fans said he doesn't like coming off his line often. Even for the first goal, it didn't really felt like he moved off his line. Yeah. That goal, though, is absolutely inexcusable from a goalkeeper to not come and dominate your 6-yard box in that sort of situation. And he kind of just puts his hand up going, whose man's that? Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter whose man that is. if it's in an area where you can come and claim it, because like you said, Slattery had peeled off of him, so he wasn't even under pressure where he couldn't come and claim for the ball either. Again, the first goal I think is avoidable from an Aberdeen point of view if we do our job a bit better, Liam Scales.
Yeah.
Second goal, avoidable if we do our job, Kellaroos.
Yeah.
Third goal, I don't know who the hell I'm going to blame here, but
we'll find someone.
Yeah, probably. But on you go.
Sorry, no, I do agree. And also, if Kellaroos is wondering who's marking him, yell at someone before the corner's even taken. Take this man as well. And if he's not confident coming out and catching the ball, get a fist to it, flap at it, whatever. Flick it on for a throw in. Whatever with your hands. Yeah. But anyway, we'll move on and get on to the next one, which is still not great.
Yeah, and for me, what was even worse is the fact that we've got a setback, but we were still in a game 2-2 that we've been pretty terrible in. A point, whilst not amazing, we could have still built on towards getting 3 points. Yet 3 minutes later, Liam Kelly punts the ball up the pitch within 10 touches, all of which were taken by a Motherwell player. The ball finds its way into the back of the net despite Blair Spittle's best efforts, because I don't know how he doesn't score his attempt, which crashes off the crossbar. And of course, Kevin bloody Van Veen. It had to be him that got the winner, didn't it?
Knew that Cowboy was going to have to say in it. Honestly, unbelievable. Unbelievable that it didn't take a touch off an Aberdeen player. Because I think it was McCrory's legs that went pretty much straight through. I don't know how he didn't deal with it, get something on it. And yeah, at the time I thought Kellaroos again, because from my angle it looked like Van Veen wasn't quite as central where he was. So maybe Kellaroos could have thrown himself at. I still think maybe he could have tried to throw himself at the header, but it is very quick coming off the bar and Van Veen getting his head to it. But I mean, of course it had to be him. I mean, I don't even know if he particularly had the game that you'd expect him to have. And I mean, he still caused problems. He's still a big physical threat. I can't do it. Physical threat. And yeah, he had it home. Couldn't miss really. It's just really, really, really frustrating. But the reaction just wasn't there from us. Even from conceding their second goal and from the third as well. If anything, they got more slow and sort of turgid.
And for me, that was the biggest frustration. Obviously, I think Leighton Clarkson had gone off at 2-2 or 3-2, and we'll get onto that in a minute as well. But the reaction to going down in the stands was one of encouragement. And the reaction to going 3-2 down on the pitch was one of, I have no idea what we're doing now to get ourselves back into the game. And I said to Gogsy, we've got to credit Motherwell, because they came up here with a game plan. They executed it perfectly. They wanted the game more. They wanted the 3 points more. They were determined. They fought for it and ultimately got what they deserved. And you could argue so did we, for the level of performance that we put in. So, as much as we're angry at what we've done, and we're obviously dissecting that, you have to praise Motherwell for getting the job done, because given the uncertainty that they've had this season, the poor results, their heads could have dropped at 2-1, but no, they looked the hungrier, they looked the better team, got themselves 3-2 up, and Callum, as you said, it got slow for Aberdeen. Jim Goodwin said we could have scored 6 or 7 last week, but Motherwell could have scored 6 or 7 this week, especially after that third.
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. This is a Motherwell team, where Stephen O'Donnell's, who's playing left back, by the way, had said they need players more than a new manager. Paul McGinn at right back, Stephen O'Donnell at left back. They're nowhere near where they want to be yet in terms of recruitment or whatever right now. But the way they came and played, and again, I mentioned that if our quality's not there, we need to outfight them. They absolutely walked all over us. And that, so credit does have to be given for that, and we can't argue with the result. Only sort of the performance that we put in, because Motherwell absolutely did deserve the 3 points from what we saw.
Yeah, and like you said, if it was an away game, you could maybe accept it a little bit more. their fans spurring them on, but the fact that we saw that level of performance from us at home is simply unacceptable. There's no other word for it.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's off the back of a very good victory with St Mirren. So you would have thought confidence would have been high as well. So
yeah,
it's frustrating. Let's just hope that we give some sort of a reaction against St Johnstone, against a team that has Andy Considine, Adam Montgomery, and Stevie May. So it could be written in the stars for them, which is making me even more nervous. But yeah.
But just finally, kind of on the Motherwell game, obviously I said we had the injury with Leighton Clarkson. Now, Duke was set to come on before Leighton Clarkson went down. Now, I'm not sure who he was set to replace at the time, if it was going to be Johnny Hayes, who, of course, he did eventually replace. But Jim Goodwin said last week he was going to learn the lesson from making 3 subs at 3 different stages, which, of course, left us with only 10 men when Callum Roberts picked up his injury. Well, he's done Pete Derek McInnes, because this is almost the bane of your life, isn't it, this sort of thing?
It really annoys me. It really, really annoys me. I know, with some of the injuries, things like that, it sort of throws things up in the air a little bit, but you've got 3 stoppages to make 5 substitutions, halftime doesn't count. And you've got Duke ready, and I thought, it'll be fine. They'll make the 2 changes at once, whatever. Maybe they need to rethink things. Duke sits back down, and then 5 minutes we bring him on anyway, rendering the 2 other substitutions absolutely useless when you've got, Christian Ramirez sitting on the bench once again and not getting involved. When I know maybe when we're not creating too much, he's maybe not the ideal player, but regardless, he's a 15-goal season striker, and he's still sitting on the bench because we've cocked things up with the substitutions again. It really, really, really annoys me.
Yeah, and it really annoyed me as well, because again, the point you make about Ramirez and service is a really good point, because Brune kept saying, "I've forgotten Majovski's even playing this half," because the service to him in that second half was atrocious. What would that difference have made bringing Ramirez on? I hear everybody saying, well, it would have given the Motherwell defenders something to think about. As you said, a striker that scored 15, 16 goals last season, that is another problem. Chuck him on with Majovski. Let them see what both of them can do. Even if you've got Duke on as well. As people were saying to us on Twitter, Bazan was offering nothing. Take him off. Last 10 minutes, he was holding his hamstring on regular occasions as well. Could we take him off? No. Thanks, Jim. So again, another example where we could have found ourselves playing the last 10 minutes with 10 men, but also 3-2 down at home, chasing the game, and we can't do anything for the last 10 minutes because you cocked up your substitutions.
So annoying. If you're going to make the Duke change, just make it at the same time. It's just, I like Jim Goodwin, but I mean, come on, this is relatively simple stuff. And I get, you'll have to have a little think about, because the injury sort of throws things off and who else are you going to take off and things like that. But goodness me, it really just does grind my gears.
As well, like when Duke does come on, we're 3-2 down anyway. So that's your last substitution. Why not? We saw against the Mirren, they both came on together, him and Ramirez, albeit Ramirez was for Majovski. Again, a little bit of hindsight, maybe just think what we could have done better there. And I kind of disagreed with it being Hayes coming off. I know you did as well. Just some question marks around that. It will, I think, adds further to the frustration when you see a performance like we did at the weekend.
Yeah, it definitely does. It's not ideal at all. But, hopefully now, this time, he will learn. 3rd time's a charm.
3rd time is a charm. And 3rd time has not been a charm for us in terms of keeping clean sheets this season. Hopefully it'll be 4th time a charm as we make the trip to St Johnstone this weekend. Callum, as you already said, it is a reunion with Andy Considine, Stevie May, Adam Montgomery. And I think based on the result from this weekend, now only having 3 points from our opening 9, we've almost put a little bit of unwanted, unnecessary, unneeded, enter any other adjective you want, pressure onto this game purely based on our away form last season.
Yeah, I think so. Already almost a must win. I mean, I know in the grand scheme of things, it might not make that much difference, but in terms of the pressure it then puts on, Jim Goodwin and the players as well.
Surely the pressure media will want to apply if we don't win this game.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. two defeats in a row, 3 defeats from our first 4 would not be a happy away, and I don't feel like. And then but absolutely with the media as well. All the new players coming in, they might come into question. We need to go out and ideally we win fantastically. We get a clean sheet, but the things from last week need to be better. Outfight them, and we should win because we do have the quality there. And if we stick to our game, hopefully things will eventually start to come off. But it's St Johnstone, and we know exactly what they're all about.
Yeah, I like how you said hopefully we keep a clean sheet. Aberdeen have failed to keep a clean sheet in 4 of the last 5 games against St Johnstone. So maybe don't hope too much. But both teams, in fact, this season have failed to keep a clean sheet. So despite 8 of the last 8 games being under 2.5 goals, there maybe is the potential for goals this weekend. But games against St Johnstone tend to be cagey, tight affairs. I always feel they're more cagey down at Perth for whatever reason. But St Johnstone themselves, coming into this game on the back of a 4-0 defeat at Ibrox, will be looking for that kind of level of consistency that they had maybe a couple of seasons ago. Them themselves also in a bit of a rebuild, and again, probably looking to use home advantage as the perfect platform to get back after that heavy defeat at the weekend.
Absolutely, and I'm sure their sort of singing section will be well behind them as well. And if things are going St Johnstone's way, or even still 0-0 come 20 minutes, 30 minutes, then they've got something good to hold on to. And we know what St Johnstone can be like. We know how physical they are, especially sort of in the middle of the park as well. It's going to be an absolute battle, but we need to make sure we're right up for it and correct all the wrongs sort of from last week, and stick to it as well. Don't sort of get frustrated and then start lobbing balls in the box at every chance you get. Do stick to the plan. I'm not saying just pass it around the back forever, but be brave. Try and make things happen. Whether it'll happen, I don't know, because they will make it very difficult for us. But we do have to really pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and go again and get the 3 points in this match.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you're right. The Fair City Unity back off their boycott at Ibrox due to ticketing prices will be behind the home side in fine voice and give them lots of backing. And I'm sure there will be a decent away following travelling down to Perth on Saturday as well. And you're right. We do need to kind of stick with that game plan. Hopefully, some of the injuries aren't too severe. Maybe Hayden Coulson, is going to be fit for this weekend, we hope. Again, depends, kind of going with what you said about rushing players back before they're ready. I think Jim Goodwin said he might still be another week away. Again, we've got Jack McKenzie now, who's got minutes under his belt. Will he now slip into that position? Leighton Clarkson, was it just cramp that forced him off? But again, with Ross McCrory, hopefully that'll move him back into midfield. Does Shaden Morris come in on the right-hand side? Or do we chuck in a second striker in there? Does Vicente get a rest after his performance at the weekend? Although if we're judging it by performances from the Motherwell game, you'd almost be starting a whole different 11. And even people have been questioning whether or not Joel Lewis comes into the game. But I think for a goalkeeper, you drop him on the basis of just that one performance, you just shatter his confidence totally. So I think on the goalkeeper anyway, I fully expect Kyle Rose to continue in goals.
Yeah, definitely. I think that'll probably be the case until if he makes an absolute howler at some stage. But for me, I would like to see Jack McKenzie come in from the start. And obviously his fitness is maybe into question, but then it allows Scales to move into centre back. And we know his ball playing is very effective. He's very confident in stepping out from the back too. And then McCrory in the middle of the park alongside Ramadani, that partnership, which worked so well in the Premier Sports Cup group stages, and I think you need McCrory in the middle of the park. I don't know if they will go with 2 strikers. I feel like it'll be another 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3. But I don't know, maybe if he is going to bring out Basawin, and maybe Duke goes in there and sort of plays as one of the 3 off Miofsky, perhaps. It'll be an interesting one, but I do feel like Vinny's not exploded yet this season. I think there is something coming there. I feel like I'm expecting it. He's going to pull something out of nothing, and hopefully that would be this week.
Yeah, hopefully. And I suppose for St Johnstone fans, a player they'll hope that explodes onto the scene sooner rather than later as well is Theo Bair. The Canadian striker's really struggled for goals this season. Actually struggled for goals in his St Johnstone career as a whole, yet to score. Although again, did score in that game in Spain against us. So obviously does know where the back of the net is against Aberdeen. And he'll probably be looking to do similar again this weekend. I guess with a striker that's struggling for goals coming up against Aberdeen. Certainly last season you knew what was going to happen next. Let's hope it's not a case this weekend for Theo and he's waiting another 7 days for his first St Johnstone competitive goal.
Absolutely, let's hope so. But at the same time, even if he doesn't find the back of the net, he's a big physical player, and sometimes our defence looks a little bit uncomfortable against that sort of calibre of player. So I'm sure he'll still be looking to cause problems. We know exactly what they'll be about. They'll try and frustrate us, hit us on the counter-attack, be very, very physical in those 50-50s, going up for headers. It's St Johnstone. They know every trick in the book. So it is tough, but we do need to stick to it, and hopefully we can come away with a positive result, because as we said, it'll be a very unhappy camp, and I wouldn't be looking forward to doing next week's podcast if I've gone to Perth and we suffer again.
Yeah, and I suppose when you've dealt with one bunch of hammer throwers from Lanarkshire, that you don't want to be going to one bunch of hammer throwers from Perth either. But I suppose in dealing with a physical striker, we kind of had to deal with that in Van Veen. If we've got to do that with Bair this week and struggle, I'm not looking forward to speaking to you and Rankin from the Talk Livy podcast next week ahead of the Livingston game when they've got Joel Newbley coming up to Pittodrie.
Oh no, absolutely not. And then it gets even worse the higher quality they get. I mean, if Celtic start with Jack and Marcus, things like that, it could prove a lot of problems. So hopefully they can start off with Theo Bair, deal with him well. As we said, Anthony Stewart dealt with Akinfenwa in training. Turns out he's got problems with dealing with passes into the box and controlling them before clearing them, which we forgot to mention.
2 feet at times.
Yeah, exactly, which was absolutely horrendous. But hopefully he'll, dust himself off, because I think it needs to start with a fantastic performance from him, and start with a solid base. Hopefully we can build things forward, because all the forward players definitely do have quality, even if we are starting to look a little bit thin thanks to injuries.
Yeah, and I suppose, dealing with that threat that Theo might possess is one thing, but looking at the way St Johnstone have lined up over the last 4 fixtures, they've gone with a 3-4-2-1 in all 4 games. And that has been with Theo leading the line, but then having Jamie Murphy and Graham Carey, who they brought in from Plymouth in the summer, playing off of him. So he might be a target man, but he's also someone that they'll look to hold the ball up to, and then bring in the experience of Jamie Murphy and Graham Carey to really drive at the Aberdeen defence. And if they then start, go wider and you go a 3-4-3, those 2 players have got the experience that are going to exploit gaps left by the likes of Jayden Richardson. And we saw at what ease Motherwell managed to exploit them.
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, those 2 players you highlighted there are very, very technically good. I mean, not as young as they once were, but perhaps not as explosive, but they've got that quality about them to make things happen at times, and yeah, they'll have that sort of tactical nous to know what gaps to exploit. And Jayden Richardson, despite being a right back, playing as a right wing back sort of most of the time and getting very high up the park, and definitely needing to learn when to go and when to stay and be a bit more disciplined with it. They'll be sure to try and exploit that, and we know what they're all about. They'll have the midfield support runners as well, crosses into the box. I'm sure there will be plenty of them to deal with, so we need to be at it from minute 1. We can't afford another slow start and give them even more to hold on to at McDermott Park, a place we've found it very hard to go to.
Yeah, exactly. And the other issue as well is if there is space to exploit and pace to get in behind, they've then got the likes of Michael O'Halloran, Ali Crawford, and of course Stevie May, who've all made substitute appearances off the bench this season. We know what problems Stevie May can cause us. We saw it last season as well at Pittodrie. Michael O'Halloran likewise. So when I was writing this up, suddenly going into a game against St Johnstone that should have had no fear, I was suddenly becoming fearful. And it was going back to that point where, I was messaging you the weekend about the guy that came up to me in the Carlton and said, likes the dynamic duo that we provide. One's optimistic and one's realistic. I don't know if we're now both feeling realistic for the game, or do you still retain any form of optimism ahead of this weekend?
I'm almost verging pessimistic the more you talk about that. I genuinely got shivers when you mentioned Stevie May. I'm not joking. I wish I was lying about that. We know. I don't know. We know what they're capable of, and now after that result against Motherwell, I just feel like some confidence has been sapped. I feel like those are kind of games that we should be going in, controlling, dominating, but St Johnstone away, and I know we won there last season in one of our 2 away wins. Hopefully, we can kickstart and get off our first of the season this weekend.
Yeah, although I'm sure Saints fans will still be hoping it's not as controversial if we do win there this season. We've spoken about maybe the threat that the Saints can cause us defensively. From an Aberdeen point of view, though, we've got to be confident of causing Saints problems with their ageing backline. Sorry, Andy, you are getting on a bit. But so is Ryan McGowan as well, who is, of course, their other centre-back. And you've got Adam Montgomery, who, let's be honest, was utter shite for us last season as one of their fullbacks. And Dre Wright, as regular contributor to the show, Michael Monin will tell you, is a terrible footballer. That's his words, not mine. So cue Dre Wright goal this weekend. But there is, options if we can get things right in that midfield, that McCrory-Ramadani partnership. You were speaking earlier about that final pass into Majowski, or a ball that would split a defence or get in behind. If we can get them right, Majowski does look quick. Vinny, you're hoping, is going to explode it onto the scene. He's got pace to burn against the likes of McGowan and Considine as well. There's got to be hope for us here that we can cause this St Johnstone defence problems as much as they will look to cause our defence problems. Absolutely,
and then I suppose the likes of Shaden Morris as well, and Duke, if he's going to come off the bench against tiring and ageing legs.
Absolutely. I'm begrudging you are having to use that against Andy Considine.
It's really upsetting me. I don't think I'm prepared for how emotional seeing him playing for St Johnstone against us is going to be. But regardless, we need to expose his physical frailties, perhaps. We should be confident, and I'm really finding it hard to believe in myself and believe in this lot after last weekend. But
you're the optimistic one. Come on.
I know it is one performance. Hopefully, it is just a bump in the road, and we will see them come out with that energy, with bits of flair from the likes of Vinny, the creative spark, and make things happen. Because there is gaps to be exposed. There is a reason St Johnstone are being tipped by many to be relegated this season. They were pretty damn close to it last season. We should win. That's basically what we're going to leave it as. We should win. They're not confident, though.
Well, with that glowing confidence, I think that's probably the best place to end the preview. Calum not being his usual optimistic self, but let's hope that it is just a small bump in the road on the way to HMS Pistol League, because we've maybe sprung a few leaks this weekend. There is a few repair jobs needing done, but look, it is a setback. There is a lot of frustration and anger, as we've said through this episode, I think justified at the level of performance. None of this is really aimed at Jim Goodwin personally, substitution mistakes aside. But let's hope that when we go to Perth, we can get things right. We can get our season back on track, if you want to use that as the wording, correct wording or not, because it is a long season. We're only 3 games in. We don't want to be seen as overreacting to the defeat, but I think there is rightly a lot of reaction to it. And really, Calum, St Johnstone, not the easiest place to go when you're now then looking for a result, but I think this weekend, I think, Calum, it's fair to say, will tell us a lot about this squad and Jim Goodwin if we can go down there and get 3 points in a convincing manner.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We do need to react, and hopefully we will see that from the squad. I do agree that I think we will learn a lot to see how maybe this season's going to go if we do have these blips, which they come in everyone's season. Even the best teams have disappointing results. So it'll be interesting. I just think maybe my me being pessimistic is maybe coming recording on Monday. We're getting back into that groove, and after defeat, I've not had too much time to recover. I'm sure come Friday, I'll be convinced we're going to win the lot again. So hopefully another win will enhance that for next week's episode.
Well, there you go. There's that positive bombshell to end things on. Until next time, thank you very much for tuning in. We hope that episode wasn't too brutal. The therapy has helped heal the pain of the weekend's defeat, and let's hope the next week we've got something much more positive to speak about.
Let's hope so. And don't forget to leave a like if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe if you're new around here, follow us wherever you're listening in, and on Twitter at RTG_podcast and Instagram RTG.podcast. Thank you very much. I'm going to try it again since it didn't work again, but go Utes!